We good? I can't hear.
1 2 1 2.
We good? Chris, we good? We got a little bit of a different
Yeah,
setup.
we're good.
Yes?
This might be the
Okay,
first time
good.
we got it, when I'm driving. I think it might be okay. First time.
Okay, good. So yes, we have a little bit of a different setup today. Hello,
Right.
welcome everybody to the Great Transition. Asaf, you look a little bit different
Hello.
today. It's
Yes.
different. Hello.
No plaid.
Chris, good to see Chris, good to see you. Yeah. We are here, the Great Transition, three students of the authentic wisdom of Kabbalah, discussing what is going on in the world through the lens of the wisdom of Kabbalah. And a lot is going on in the world. And why do we do something like this? I mean, a lot of people spread their religion or their belief or all the things that they're doing. Why do we keep talking about this? We keep talking about this because what we learn is about something very pragmatic. It doesn't require any blind faith. It's something that a person can learn and start to test out on their life. If you feel that everything in life is going great, so really we don't have that much to say to you, but if you feel that something is wrong, if you feel that things aren't going well, if you think that the world seems upside down, how can it be in such an orderly, in such a universe where everything is ordered and makes sense and is integral, something that happens on this planet affecting something here, and the whole system is. Oh, I'm hearing feedback, Chris. Hello. Okay, that's better. Um, so if we're in this whole integral system, right, you can't just send a rocket into space. If you want to send a rocket into space, you have to wait for a certain time when gravity aligns and all these different forces align. There's a whole closed system. So how could it be that everything that seems like in our life is upside down, apart, painful, doesn't make sense? So then when we start to study this system, we start to understand what's going on, why it seems the way it does, and how to turn it into something that can be good for us. Now, welcome, first of all. And We see you in our chat over here. We see friends already here from the US, from Africa, from Europe.
Ooh,
Great. Yes. Hello
nice.
from South America. Okay. Hello, everybody. So, um, welcome. We're reading your comments over there, questions, comments. So, guys, we are a few weeks into this new chapter of life on Earth. There's been plenty of terrible, terrible things. For example, like the civil war in Syria, but it doesn't make headlines for the world the way that things do when Israel is involved for some reason. This tiny place that doesn't even, you can't barely a pinpoint on the map. For some reason, though, the whole world gets involved when this country's involved. So we're a few weeks into that war, and we've been talking about it. We're trying to understand what's going on behind the scenes. Where are we going as humanity? And there's some interesting points that as we see all of these things unfolding, like from moment to moment in social media, we can start to understand a lot of things about human nature and a lot of things about the situation we're in. There's a new trend I saw on TikTok. I saw it today, so it's probably. I mean, I'm not on the cutting edge of what's going on TikTok, but it came up on my Twitter feed today that young college students, young woke students in the U.S. are praising
Mhm.
Osama bin Laden. Apparently, Osama bin
Hmm.
Laden wrote a letter after 9/11. I think he called it Letter to America, where he justifies what he did. He blames the US and Israel. He condemns homosexuality, the normal bin Laden kind of things. But um, for example, there's one TikTok influencer who has over 1 million followers, and she says, she talks about his letter to America, bin Laden's letter to America. She says, I'll never look at my life the same. I'll never look at this country the same. My entire viewpoint on the entire life I have believed and I have lived has changed. Very interesting. It's so strange. You would think
Hmm.
that at least, in America, that people would think bin Laden was not a great guy. But now you have these young people, young United
Yeah.
States college students with millions of followers praising bin Laden and saying how affected they are and how it's changing their perspective. Now, something interesting about that, there's many interesting things about that, but TikTok can really make a trend about anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just Googling it before the show.
I would even say that it can make trends about nothing too. It's like, they used to say, for those of us who are old enough, the everyone knows Seinfeld, right? I mean,
Yeah.
a show about nothing. I mean, so TikTok is basically, your whole feed could be about nothing, basically.
So right,
Any
That's
trend
what
can
a
be about
person
nothing.
feels whenever they're done scrolling, right? It's like, what did I just do? It's like, not, you can't even say you did something.
but that same passion that you would have if you did have a meaningful life, it's almost as if the same passion you would put into having a meaningful life, you put in to these meaningless things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's TikTok trend about cooking chicken in flu medicine, like drowsiness flu medicine. Like you cook your chicken in, we call it NyQuil here. So there's like millions or hundreds of millions of views on these things where people are cooking their chicken in sleep-inducing medicine. And there's all kind of other violent TikTok trends as well. There's ones that's violent on yourself, where you set a part of your body on fire and extinguish it. And there's other ones where you hurt other people. So, but these things take on a life, and then hundreds of millions of people view them, and tens of millions of people get into them. But it's not coming from my nationality, from my religion, from some generationally held beliefs, but somehow this mind virus or whatever it is takes me over and compels me to believe this, to want this, to do this thing. As an aside,
Mm-hmm.
I just want to take a little detour here for a second, because I think it's kind of cute. When you see people, for example, in Brooklyn, out there protesting about like colonizing, Israel's like this colonizing country. I want to tell them that you're standing now on native Lenape land, and you're a colonizer. Well, why am I bringing that in? Because these things don't even have these trends, like these TikTok trends, and even the things that some people are saying, like if you just start to dissect them and get a little deeper, there's no roots. There's no roots to so many of these things.
I think I mean, it goes beyond that, because there are things you can argue about. And that's basically what a lot of people are doing. They're arguing about who's right and who's wrong, and who's the bad guy and who's the good guy, and in this typically in a very binary way. But at least that's a discussion, that's an argument, something. In other cases, people don't even know what they're protesting about.
Okay, watch this. Watch this. Speaking of not protesting, not knowing what you're protesting about, tell me if you can hear this when it comes up. You see this?
Yeah.
Okay, watch.
See,
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
Which river?
That's anti-Semitic. Which river?
Which river?
Which river?
I'm asking you, which
Why are you
river,
asking
which
me?
sea?
What's the point?
Because if you're chanting from the river to the sea, you have to know which river and sea you're talking about, right?
Yeah, I do. You're right.
So which river?
You're right. Does it matter?
Yeah.
If we don't even know, then what's the point of recording?
If you don't even,
If we're
so you're writing
if we're-
messages that you
if
don't.
Okay, so
Yeah, I saw other similar examples.
there's a few.
Where students joining similar protests all over the US, and they're asked similar questions, and what you see is that they really don't know a lot. I'm not saying it's everyone, I'm just saying, these are examples, but I think they're not just anecdotal examples, because when you see it in different cities, just picking people out randomly, and they say their answers is that they don't even know what they're chanting, they don't even know what they're protesting about, then you see that there's an issue here. That is it really an argument about ideology and who's right or
Right.
who's wrong,
That's the
or is it just fashion?
that
You know?
that's the
Fashion.
point here,
That's a
right?
good
So
word.
fashion, right? So there's for sure legitimate positions
Yeah,
for
and
for
contention
everything.
points and things to argue about. Sure, let's argue, but to discuss, you need to have clarity on what it is that you're discussing and what it is your position and what is the position that you're in favor or against. This is just on a purely intellectual, rational level without even getting any kind of
So it's
a
not about
spiritual
discussing.
discussion
That's what
into
it
it,
is. It's not
which
even
we
about
can,
discussing.
yeah.
No,
Yeah,
it's a
it's just,
TikTok. It's like a TikTok challenge. It's
oh,
mostly
nice.
it's
Yeah, it's
it's
a
mostly
TikTok trend, like a
Yeah.
TikTok trend. Yeah.
yeah. So it's not to say that there's not legitimate points of view for let's say everyone. Let's say everyone every point. Let's say every point of view can be
Yeah.
legitimate. Okay, but then what happens on top of those points of view is like a TikTok challenge. It just becomes people have inside of them some passion, some life energy that they've been allotted to use, to spend on something. And if they don't have what to spend it on, they'll spend it on cooking chicken in flu medicine, or they'll spend it on, or if the life force energy is really
Right.
coursing through them and they have a lot of energy, they're going to go out and protest for whatever. And this is great. This gives you a lot, it's like going to a sporting event, like a Super Bowl. You get to shout, you get to scream for your
Yeah.
team. You get to be passionate about something that you feel good about.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. This is this is a big thing. Here's why. I mean, I can say like why that would bother someone. Like I'm here living in Israel, right? I have to go and serve in the army because my country is at war right now. My mother's one of her best friends was murdered, and her two daughters. I'm affected by what's happening here. So when some massive amount of students are protesting something elsewhere in the world, not even knowing what they're protesting about and just turning that into fashion, you can see how that is a problem. Because okay, you want to discuss, you want to argue, you want to protest, at least know but this has been fashionized. This has been TikTokized.
TikTokized.
So we don't. So that's
Yeah, and that's a problem.
this
That's
is
that's that it
this is
can't lead us to a more developed social discussion and
so
discourse.
this is really fascinating, and everyone here is going to learn something about the wisdom of Kabbalah today that maybe you didn't know before. You're also going to learn. Everyone's going to learn something about themselves, about the nature of reality, because we don't understand what this human machine is.
Wait a second. Before you get into that, Seth,
Yeah.
there's just an interesting point to make about just the protest in general. I was looking it up, and we can all kind of remember, anyways. This whole Israel-Palestine conversation, this global conversation, is very unique in a way that it's that you didn't really see before. I mean, the only other comparative thing that you have really is something like COVID, where around the world, right, you have multiple countries protesting the policies or, I don't know, new mandates or laws or whatever revolving around COVID. And so, yeah, it looks like around the world you have like a kind of like this massive movement of people protesting a similar thing. But if you dissect that situation a little bit, it's different than the Israel-Palestine situation, because they're really just protesting that government or the people who are enforcing the new laws, or it's still local. The people around China aren't protesting what the people in the U.S. are doing. So there's a difference where you have all around the world people are upset about COVID, but they're really just kind of directing their anger or their aggression even sometimes at the individual policymakers and all this. But you can look at climate change. There was also one a couple of years ago with Greta Thunberg where she was kind of rallying up the troops about climate change. But still, that's basically kind of the same thing where it's localized. This country has specific laws. the citizens of that country are upset with those laws. They want to change. They were rallying behind Greta, but they're still focused on like that individual. It's not like this global outcry. It's really interesting what's happening with the Palestinian and Israel conversation. There's really no other. You don't really have another example of that around the world. Each country individually they're all focused on one concept, on one goal that's global to everyone. It's shared for everyone. Everyone has those same feelings. It's not the people in this country have a little bit different feelings towards the people in that versus the people in that country. It's, all around the world you have people focused on one specific conversation, they have a very specific opinion about what's happening, and that's very unique in this situation. You don't really you can crawl, you can cross the ocean, go protest, and it could cross the ocean back and protest, and it's the same protest. You don't really see that anywhere else. It's really interesting. So that's why whenever you're like whenever you want to look at like the uniqueness of the situation, it's not people protest a lot of things everywhere, but this is kind of a has a special flavor to it that you don't see anywhere else.
Yeah, in terms of how global it is, even though it's very, very local, it's very, very global at the same time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's dissect it then. Let's dissect it then. Let's try and understand how this is working and what's motivating people. When, and this goes back to everyone thinking about, each person now should look at their life, look at how they built their worldview, and let's see if we can discover something new here. We think.
Wait. Okay. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So we think that some people are born as good people, some people are born as bad people. These people are born like that, and these people are born like that. And that's generally how it goes. And then you go through life, and those people kind of duke it out and use either their muscles or the court system or whatever it is. And that's how life progresses. We don't really, but we're going to challenge that now. I want to challenge that now. To say that we don't really understand how this human machine works. Clearly, based on what we're talking about now with these protests and these TikTok challenges and what Chris mentioned here, that we're not a creature that is operated by logic and reason, clearly.
Well, I'd say logic and reason are there somewhere, but there are much bigger triggers to human behavior.
And it might...
social and emotional are
I was going to say it might not even be emotional. I'm saying it might not even be logic and reason, and it might not even be emotion. There's some other mechanism in us that is determining why we're doing everything we're doing, why we become passionate about everything we're doing. What is it that's making us tick? So we need to explain this fundamental thing, because the whole world thinks, well, if I can, just explain my argument, or if you would just believe, that my God is better than your God, or if you would just read the science, then, everything would be better. But it's not. And it's just making us more and more divided. So what is it that actually determines why we do what we do? And here, the wisdom of Kabbalah says something very, very different than what we would think.
Yeah, I think the Kabbalistic perspective here is it's different from, it's very opposite to our intuition, but it actually concurs completely with what we discover from science in the last 50 to 60, 70 years in terms of, social sciences, social psychology, and so forth. There are these famous, especially when we're talking about, protests, where it's basically a group of people expressing their sentiment towards essentially another group of people. So this is very interesting when you think about it from the perspective of human nature. There are these very famous studies where you take groups of people, and very much like with what happens to children, the moment you assign them to groups, they do it, social scientists do it by, just telling them you're the blue group, you're the red group. And then immediately when you divide people to a group, especially and you assign to it a certain kind of identity, a group identity, immediately people become we have a natural human need to subscribe to a certain group and to be part of that certain group.
So
And
everyone
that
needs to
means that
start to
we
feel. Hold on a second,
yeah
Asaf. Everyone should start to feel this on themselves. We're describing now how this system,
yeah
meaning you, how this human system works. So, like
yeah
this is,
exactly
don't listen to what's happening here as some just background hum.
yeah
This
this
is
is
the operating
yeah
system that is
this
working
is
you.
not
So,
this is not done somewhere in a lab. This is happening to all of us all the time, online, offline. We have a natural relentless tendency to belong
Well, that's what's
and
so
to be
difficult about
part
high school.
of.
Sorry,
And
Asaf. That's what's difficult about high
yeah,
school, isn't it? Like you're trying to figure out what group do I belong to. I don't know. High school might have been
high
different
school,
for
yeah.
you, but at that time you're like trying to figure out where do I belong? What am
Hmm.
I? What am I a part of? Where do I fit? And it's
Yeah,
such a necessary part in that whole development.
yeah. And so and then we subscribe to some group, and that in many ways means that we are uh, potentially giving up on our own critical faculties and our own critical thinking and analysis and so forth. And in some cases, it becomes so extreme, this individual dissolving into the group mind, that in one word, it's just fashion. And what this video that you showed, in the beginning, and there are many others like that, what this shows is that even something as important and significant and meaningful as supporting or going against this or that group when it comes to war and peace, and even that is easily fashionized, is easily a matter of fashion, and that also can be weaponized. This is this
so,
is a this is a
so let's.
real issue. Meaning, people can be, because of this natural tendency that we have, they can just go with a certain flow, uh, without even knowing where they're going.
So
Yeah.
let's understand, everybody, that there's no such thing. Now, of course, there are some bad eggs that are born and some good eggs that are born. Very, very few. That no matter what you do, the wires are all crossed on this person. He's just going to be a violent person. Or no matter what you
Mhm.
do, this person will just always have like a soft heart. But we're talking about the majority of people, mostly everybody.
Yeah.
There's no such thing that people are either good or either bad. What there is you are born as, if we were talking to engineers or something, we could say like a microchip, like a chip, and then software is written onto that chip. But maybe we use more Kabbalistic language. You're born as some kind of matter, some
Mhm.
structure, some biological machine, and then some form is put onto that matter, how that
Yeah.
machine will operate. Meaning you can write onto that machine software that will make it believe this, or you can write onto that machine software that'll make it believe something else. You have this morning Americans in college who've been written onto. Software was written on them through TikTok that now they're supporting Bin Laden. So what you need to understand is that once this is written onto you, that becomes your belief. It doesn't mean that it
Yeah.
actually came from somewhere real or it's authentic, but you feel that it is. You feel that it's
Yeah.
yours.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
even new science
Yeah. I mean,
about that. Just recently, I just saw something in neuroscience magazine where they were explaining how the sense, like, they're watching their brain, right? And so they're saying, how much are the senses affected by what you think? And basically to make it kind of a short point, they understood that from what they tested, that a person doesn't use their senses, whether it's like, I don't know, basically, I guess vision is a big one here, but they don't use their senses to break down or to make conclusions. The senses are basically bypassed by what's already an imprinted pattern inside the brain. So whatever it is that you're seeing isn't actually important to the person. It's really how, I guess you could say, how a person is feeling the situation. And how do they feel it? By the pattern that's already been imprinted. So you're saying where this kind of program is laid down. That program is like this emotional pattern that a person uses their senses as like a means to receive the information and receive the data, but it goes through that program or that pattern. There's nothing a person can do about it.
Okay, so what we're saying then is that a person doesn't really have too much control over these things, and a person can be imprinted with, remember we talked about mukbang? I don't know.
Oh,
It feels like 10,000 years ago already. There's a TikTok trend where
people eat in front of the camera, basically.
Yeah, but like eat like gluttonously,
Yeah, like
right?
gorge. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So where does this word come from? Okay, so the point is that people can believe or take on almost anything, any trend, and make it like their life. Like they set up their life around it. They believe.
And this is unique to the human being. This is something that is unique to humans. You don't see that in animal, meaning the latitude, the malleability of the human mind to take on a certain ideology and run with it and make it your life and make it your passion. That does not exist in a cat or a dog or anything else. And that's very interesting. So that same ability obviously is a double-edged sword, because murderous ideologies can also make you a martyr, a terrorist martyr from the age of 5. If you're indoctrinated to do that, and you are certain that that's going to bring you closer to God, you happily go to kill yourself if you can, explode together with other people. So this is very dangerous. And then on the other hand, Kabbalistically speaking, that's exactly the same potential of the human being. Balaslami in some places calls this the attribute of singularity of the human being. Anyway, we have this need for identity, and that it's a spiritual need. It's actually a spiritual need. It's beyond the needs of the body. It's at the level of the human being. It's our minds and hearts. It's something that doesn't exist in animals. And that potential is actually what we need to uncover. We need to find how to use that to advance to a higher level of evolution. So what we're seeing in many things that have taken place in the world right now, and in fashion, and in these protests, which are also kind of fashion in another way, as we've established, you're seeing a spiritual need of human beings that is looking to be fulfilled through doing these things. So the hardware part of the human being, that's like a given. We all have a body, we all have a brain, we all, that's similar. But what you're right, the software, the code, the operating system you install on it, whatever you want to call this, that's up to us human beings. That's up to what kind of society you're going to create around that human being and so forth.
If we don't something will be written, some software will be written onto that hardware. If we don't proactively pick what it is and put it on there, it's going to be filled by the mukbang challenge or the cooking your chicken in flu medicine.
And a person's helpless to that. They really are helpless. I mean, you look at it, you look at all these things, and you're like, how could people? You could even say, how could the Nazis' children, the Nazi youth, how could that even happen? It's the same. Right. It's the same question that you have.
This is a perfect example because Nazism is not a phenomenon of Germany. Everybody, newsflash, if you didn't know, that Nazism is not some phenomenon that happened in the early 20th century in a country called Germany. This is a phenomenon that could grow anywhere.
Yeah,
You
and
have a people.
Balaam, the great Kabbalist of the previous century, wrote about that phenomenon of Nazism specifically in terms of human nature, and just showing how we've all seen how a very educated, intelligent nation can can become can become molded and shaped into this programming if you repeat it on a regular basis, and it sits on a certain need for survival and so on and so forth, and that creates a group influence around it and social influence around it, and all of that intellect and education and whatever those people had now becomes in service of this murderous ideology. So, this is just, we need to understand human nature. If we want a better future, we need to understand ourselves. That's the big thing that we're missing.
Right.
With all of this preoccupation with politics, or the media or agenda, or who's right and who's wrong. Let's understand the human being first of all. Let's understand what we're made of and how we operate.
When a person thinks that I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican or I'm like this or I'm like that, what a person needs to realize is I'm a piece of biological hardware that was imprinted with these messages.
Yeah.
That's what you are. If you're a liberal or a Democrat, what you are is you're a piece of biological machinery that was imprinted more strongly and more convincingly with that software. Now, what good does it do? What good does it do to know this? Because we're not here pushing some agenda saying you should be you should be left wing, you should be right wing, you should be pro this country or pro that country. All we're saying to you, as students of the wisdom of Kabbalah, is understand the system, understand what's operating you, and by doing that, by just starting to understand the system, then you will be cooperating with the system, in harmony with the system, and you will be guided more by the system in a more harmonious way that you don't need as much to decide which side you're on, because you're going towards the greater whole for the whole system.
Nice.
Yeah,
we didn't actually mention. Oh, sorry. Well, we should say, we didn't actually mention the hardware. Let's say that the hardware is a person that just wants to be fulfilled, wants to feel good. Everyone's got that, but the means for that. How do I feel good? What little dots and dashes do I need, and what kind of whipped creams and cherries on top do I need in order to feel good, to be fulfilled? All of us know that what I like is not what the next person likes. So, but we all know that we like things. So that's kind of like where that was maybe understood. We didn't really mention it, but it's something that every person at least can identify with. I want to feel good. How I want to feel good, that's what makes us different.
Okay, so we have all of these constantly changing trends. Like, if it wasn't for Coca-Cola spending billions and billions of dollars, we wouldn't be drinking Coca-Cola. Right? Like, if all of this advertisement dried up, these companies aren't spending billions and billions on advertising because they want to. They have to. If they stopped spending it, then you wouldn't be imprinted with that information, and you would stop buying that product. So there's these constantly changing trends. Every year it's something else, right? This year it's this sports team, it's the New York Yankees, then it's Michael Jordan, and then it's Disney, and then it's this, and then it's, I don't know, Beyonce, and then it's whatever we're constantly being fed. Another one, another one, another one, another one. Always a new trend. But we want to understand what's essentially at the heart of all this, and we're starting to discover there's a piece of hardware here that's written with software. But there's something that Chris brought up before, which I think it's worthwhile to bring up again here. When it comes to this Israel situation, this trend has not gone away since pretty much civilization began. And it's not just a passing fad, because it's the Egyptian Empire came and went, and this Israel was there. The Roman Empire came and went, and that Israel was there. Like, at the heart of it, right? The Egyptian Empire and all the pyramids, that's the story of the Bible. The Romans, the great giant Roman Empire, that was
Yeah.
the temple in Jerusalem that they're fighting over today. That's what we're talking about. The whole Greek Empire, the same temple. The Persians, the Persian Empire, every, Christopher Columbus and King Isabel and Ferdinand, the discovery of America, the Jews were there. That was after the what's it called? The Inquisition, right? The World War II. What is this trend, or whatever it
Yeah.
is?
Yeah.
This.
What first of all, what you're bringing up right now, I don't think a lot of people know or are aware of. I mean, you know a lot about you wrote a book about this. You know about a lot about the history of this. Not a lot of people know, but for several thousand years already, for a few thousand years, there is a constant preoccupation with this group called Jews and with this place called Israel. And when you zoom out and try to understand what's going on, it doesn't make any physical sense. It just doesn't make any physical sense. I mean, one just needs to look at a map to get that picture. I mean, I'll share my screen for a second. Here's can you see this?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. 1 second.
There's a big gray box in the middle of it.
Yeah. How about now?
There's still some
Any-
gray
Another gray
rectangles
box is
on it.
covering it. There it is.
Oh no.
It's
Okay.
gone.
Now we see. Now we see.
Good. Okay. This is check this out. This is a map of the Middle East, right? So this is Israel. I'm here right now. This thing. I'm trying to. I hope you can see my cursor, my
Yeah,
mouse.
we see.
Okay. So this is it. This is Israel. Just look at the size of this place. This is 8,000 square miles. That's all of Israel, right? This is Egypt. This is Saudi Arabia. Look at all the neighboring countries. Just this map, by the way, is proportionally accurate. So the size here reflects the true proportion. So this is Israel. This is the size of Egypt. This is the size of Saudi Arabia. This is Iraq. This is Iran. This is Turkey. This is Syria. This is Israel. Now let's zoom out even more. You see this star? You see this yellow star?
Yeah.
This is Israel. Let's zoom in. Here it is, Israel. Zoom out. This is the entire world. You can't even see, because it's so small. If you're trying to fit it on the entire screen, you can't even see the name of the place. I had to mark it here with this star, like a place in Tel Aviv, just to get to get this pin on the map. So the world, in terms of proportion, in terms of just the size of this place, why is it such a big thing? Because it's in direct inverse proportion to the attention that this place gets from the world. You know, I asked ChatGPT the other day. Wait, I think let me unshare my screen here. Yeah. So yeah. So I asked ChatGPT the other day, to do some research for me. It turns out that in the last 7 years, the amount of resolutions in the UN that were criticizing Israel for whatever reason, doesn't matter, different kinds of reasons, is about 140. That's just the last 7 years. Compared to that, the amount of resolutions that have to do with all other countries in the world is 68. So double. How does it make sense? The UN is supposed to be like a place that, like a forum that deals with the issues of the world, the issues of the entire world. And that forum has done more about this little tiny dot on the map, double more than what it did for all the countries in the world. How does that make any sense? How does that make any sense? And also the same with regards to the Jewish population, not just Israel. There's a very weird unreasonable proportion, remarkable situation here, and a direct inverse relationship between the material size and place and power that Israel and the larger, the group of Jews around the world, that they actually have, and how the world feels that concept, that place, that
The percentage,
notion of
the
Israel.
the population of Jews on Earth is 0.2%. It's
Right.
less than one. It's
0.2%.
less than half of 1%. It's less than quarter of 1% of the population.
Here's a mathematical exercise. So if you had 500 people in the entire world, right? We have 8 billion people in the world. How many Jews? 15, 16 million. That's just to get a set. By the way, when you see a lot of videos that ask people, or like some of those students, how many Jews are in the world? People say 100 million, 200 million. It's a very interesting thing. People don't recognize how small is this grouping of people.
So insignificant.
0.2%, and so much attention. How does that make any sense? Just think about it. If the world was just 500 people, there would be one Jew. That's it. And that doesn't make. If there's 1,000 people in the world, there's 2 Jews. That's it. How many Muslims, by the way? 250. There's about 25% of the world are Muslims. So I mean, just the proportion. That to me, that's mind blowing. Why? Because we see for a few thousand years this relentless dynamic of the world towards the world and those groupings of Jews. And since you have the state of Israel from the last 75 years, I just gave the UN example. So what is going on here? How can it be that the geographical map, the physical map, and the physical size of that group called the Jews, and the physical size of this land of Israel has a direct inverse relationship with the significance and attention that the world gives to it?
How
it
can
doesn't
it be?
make any sense.
So right. How can it
Incorporealize? It doesn't make any sense.
Makes no sense.
There's only a spiritual explanation to it. This is not. You cannot. In fact, it's so obvious when you put the numbers together, when you look at the size of the place, when you and you compare that with the attention and so forth, like what we're doing now. When you make this juxtaposition, it's very obvious that you're not dealing with a phenomenon that ends on this surface. There's a huge iceberg below the surface.
Even you juxtapose that with the history that has been going on for as long as people have been jotting down, historical events, that there have been Jews. There's been some kind of something that's happened. So it's not just these people are mad and those people are mad, and it happens like you said on that superficial layer. There's something that's continuing and continuing. It's not just a religious thing, or it's not just a land thing either. So it's something. Now that you blow it up like that, it feels weird that we're even talking about, like, why haven't we ever mentioned this? Why do you not hear this on the news? Kind of. It's a question like, why no one
why
even
don't
talking
people
about that?
understand this? If you were to go, I spoke to someone this morning who told me that about what's going on the college campus where they are, and if it was any other minority, like immediately it would be called a hate crime. But if it's against Jews, it's not. There's some other. This group is such a weird group. Why are there billions of people with all of these weapons that want to destroy this place? Why are there countries who call for the eradication of this place? Why is this place?
I would say, why does Israel and the Jews feel in many ways like a thorn in humanity's spine? That's kind of why does it feel so much more than what it is on the surface? The reason is that it's beyond the surface. There is a spiritual map that looks totally different, that looks completely opposite to the physical map. if on the physical map, Israel is this little dot, as we've seen, it's a dot. It's just a dot on planet Earth, and the whole planet, especially now, is obsessed with it, right? And if this grouping called the Jewish people is just 0.2%, and it gets so much attention, this means that the spiritual map, the roots that are beneath the surface, they look totally different. And from a spiritual perspective, I would say the map looks like Israel is everywhere. That's a very
What does that mean?
Weird thing. It means that, well, when we're talking about things from a Kabbalistic perspective, this is not religion. This is not a belief system. This is not an ideology. This is laws of nature that we're talking about. They're just hidden from our five senses. They are laws that exist in the connections between all human beings. And that's the map. That's the spiritual map. And according to these laws of nature that we learn from the Kabbalistic wisdom, all of humanity is a single body. It's a single organism. And just like in the human body, every organ has a function. Every organ has a role. They're all connected. They're all, whether we see it or not, whether we're aware of it or not, they're all interdependent. They're all intertwined, and they have to somehow work together. And what we think of as Israel or Jews, these are intertwined concepts, and let's not get into all the details about the difference between them. I'm lumping them together. Just call it Israel, the people of Israel, right? When we're thinking about the people of Israel, we have to, and we want to understand what's going on here, we have to look at the relationship between that concept of Israel and all the rest of the world. And if you look at the spiritual map, Israel is like some sort of a nervous system here that connects all the other nations. And that's why all the other nations feel it as very significant, very meaningful, very powerful, very annoying, very much something to hate.
So let's understand why is this
sometimes.
trend against this nation, that it's not just, we understand that
It's not even a nation. We want to go into that right now.
okay, let's not open up everything.
We've talked about it. Yeah, we've talked about it.
The point is that whether it's some TikTok challenge to do this or some TikTok challenge to do that, or it's the fact that people now with millions of followers on TikTok are praising Osama bin Laden, it'll pass. Give it a month. Remember Oliver Anthony played that song, and he was the biggest guy in the world.
That was good for 2 weeks.
Yeah, right, exactly. All of these things pass. As big as they are, and as much as we think they're affecting the world, they pass. But this trend is not passing. I'm going to come back to that again. And
it's not passing. It's only shape-shifting. It's because it's part of the laws of nature, and it's not just. It's again, humanity is an organism. We see this organism, it's a spiritual organism, meaning it's non-material. Humanity is it's a non-material collective entity that we are part of, and that entity is actually going through a process that is across all of time. And so at the moment, we people who live in 2023, we observe a very limited, narrow fragment from this non-material entity that.
But everybody here wants to observe more. Let we don't have a lot of time here. Everybody here wants to understand more. We don't want to just see some small narrow thing. We already understand now. It's not that my neighbor was born bad and I was born good. No, everyone is born like a microchip that software is imprinted on it. You want to have a different life, you need to imprint. You have to write different software to you. Fine, we got that.
Yeah.
Now this next thing. What is this eternal?
That's
situation?
The whole point. That's the whole point. This group, the way it was created and the function that it fulfills has to do with upgrading the entire the software for the entire world. But they don't know exactly what they're supposed to do. The world doesn't understand exactly why it feels that it's like a spine in a thorn in their spine. But there's something that needs
So
to happen
what
with
needs to
regards
happen?
to,
What is this software upgrade?
well, the creation of this group. It's not about nationality at all. It has nothing to do with genetics, and it has nothing to do with nationality, and it has nothing to do with religion. All of these came as side effects, as products of what truly created this group. And what created this group is it is the first occurrence in the human network of a global connection. That's where this group comes from. We're not going to go into all of the history of it. We've discussed it in other places. We don't have the time now. But what's happening with this group is it's just the creation of it was the beginning of updating humanity, updating our operating system. It takes a couple thousand years, but now we're reaching a point where the world is becoming global. All of us are interdependent. The world is like a global village. We're all hyper connected with technology and the internet and so forth. We're all dependent on each other through trade and commerce and war and media and culture and so forth. And we need to complete the update in order for us to actually live in peace and rise to a higher level of evolution. We need to complete the update. So the same thing that this group was founded on now needs to become the property of all of mankind. And that means that this group needs to rediscover what it was founded on to begin with, which is human connection above all differences. That's what this group was to begin with. It's not a unique nationality, again, not a unique religion, not unique genetics. It's humanity created out of itself an initial group of unifying all the differences. And after a few thousand years, the same operating system now needs to be installed to all of mankind that developed the need for it through global interdependence. And so until that happens, there is what you can call never-ending anti-Semitism or never-ending preoccupation with this group, with the Jews, obsession with Israel and so forth, because the world feels that something's wrong, something is not right. And they're right about that, because we don't understand our spiritual feelings. We don't understand our spiritual existence, but we are a single body. We feel like individuals, but we're actually a single collective organism. And those feelings towards Israel that the whole world feels, and so easily, it's caught on so easily and becomes fashion so easily, right? And it only shapeshifts throughout history. These feelings are humanity's need to move to the next level of development, which is a higher level of connection that actually allows for global cooperation and global collaboration and global peace and so forth. That's what humanity wants, and somehow it gets directed towards this group in an unconscious way at the moment.
So the same way that we saw that you would never think.
I wish we had a good quote, because there's tons of Kabbalist quotes about it. So people don't think that we're saying this just out of our own minds here. This is something that Kabbalists have been talking about repeatedly and explaining this in very different ways from 2,000 years ago, from the Book of Zohar, describing all of humanity like a body, and Israel is like a certain nervous system or a heart that pumps blood and so forth, through all of the what we call the prophets and more recent Kabbalists who explained it in many different ways. This is something that is discovered by Kabbalists for thousands of years as laws of nature that govern the human network. And maybe we can grab a quote also before we conclude. But anyway, I just want people to know that I'm not, just coming up with this.
If we say anything good here, we didn't come up with it. And if we say anything bad here, we made a mistake and we'll try and get better. Yeah, anything good that we have to say here is comes from what we learned in the wisdom of Kabbalah. But if you could imagine 20 years ago, people going online and praising Osama bin Laden, it would never happen in the
Hmm.
States. You'd be arrested, the FBI would be at your door. But today, it can be accepted. So it's something very, very interesting here. What's so interesting here? That a person can come to accept anything, really almost anything. And why is that interesting? Because the world that we need to reach, the good future that we need to reach, what we feel today as that life doesn't feel good, that's a measurement, like as bad as it feels, that's a measurement of how far we are from that good place. So all of this hatred against, how do we come to this transformation? How do we go? All of
Yeah.
these forces need to be integrated. Like that's what I'm saying here. Like 20 years ago, you would never praise bin Laden. 20 years later, you can praise bin Laden. So it took 20 years for some kind of integration to happen in America where his views could mix around
Mm,
inside the people
mm.
here until it
Yeah,
can be
I see
accepted.
what you're
So
saying.
I'm taking it the other way around.
Yeah,
I'm saying we're starting out from the bad, and now we're trying to integrate with the good. It's a process, but we don't want to wait 20 more years because this goes through all these integrations happen through wars, and all these integrations,
yeah,
anything can be integrated. The perfect, peaceful, wonderful future life that we all want will happen. But how do you
yeah.
integrate?
I want to add some more words to what you just said, as I think it's important to communicate this to people. All that nature is doing, and not just with mankind, by the way. This is something that's been going on for billions of years of evolution. All that nature is doing is this integration process. It creates more different things, separate elements, and integrates them. More separateness, more differences, and more integration. This is essentially what evolution and human evolution is all about. And so the as we're moving forward in our evolution into the future, we are pushed by nature to achieve a higher and more advanced and complex level of integration. Now, like you said, this integration manifests in horrible ways if we don't master the process. If we're just victims of evolution, victims of the process, then nature causes us to fight with each other. And through these conflicts, horrible conflicts, we absorb from each other and make links between each other on a deeper level that we don't understand from our limited, narrow, fragmented perception within space and time, but we're actually becoming integrated with each other. If we don't want to do this through wars and conflicts, we can, but that means we need education. We need to change the software that runs the human being to install a different software on the microchip that governs us. We need to start making this the new fashion, even if you will. That's what we need to do proactively. And also, we're being pushed to see this even in a very rational way. Just think about it. The world is becoming like, look at what's happening right now. It's so dumb. I'm just gonna call it dumb. What do I mean? You have basically the world is becoming divided. You see it very clearly around Israel. There's one camp, which is, you could say, I don't want to become a political analyst now, but there's several countries that are basically saying, okay, we need to annihilate the state of Israel. We need to become some sort of an empire. And all of a sudden, you see Iran, you see Russia coming together. All of a sudden, you see kind of one kind of group, and then you see another group that has a different kind of geopolitical interests, and for them it's better to keep this this Israel thing. It's interesting that this is how it happens right now in at this stage in human history, that it's all surrounding this dot on the map. But it's what am I saying? Why am I saying this is dumb? Because it's again a mindset of war. The whole world is basically thinking still in terms of how to be, powerful enough. Every country wants to be in the powerful camp that will defeat the other camp. That is such a dumb software for a global interdependent species on a limited finite planet that is soon destabilizing its ecosystem that will bring ruin to all of us. It's just stupid. We need to rise above that limited, narrow idea of just devouring each other and understand that our differences were meant for us to complete each other, to complement each other and create a greater synergistic whole. How do you do that? That means an ascent, a spiritual ascent. We need a different mindset. We need to install a new software. That's what Jews have been the early initial, only the initial Hebrews did. It's a group that came from all kinds of different tribes and clans and came together, not based on genetics, not based on religion or anything, and they did that. And then they broke apart and they forgot about it completely. And since then, humanity needs this thing to happen again. We're right at the point where this thing, if this doesn't start happening, unfortunately, the Kabbalistic forecast is bad. We're going to have more conflicts and more war.
You had hydrogen.
Unless we change the... Yeah.
You had hydrogen, you had oxygen. They smashed and burned and froze together until you got water. There was a time when there was no water. There was just hydrogen and oxygen. Nature constantly pushes things together to make greater things, to make more complex, to make more beautiful things. So what's happening now is all of humanity, these opposing forces, are being forced to smash into each other in order to integrate all of these forces, the forces of the West and the forces of the East, and to smash all of these forces together and to bring us to a new humanity. We really want to be able to do this without wars, but through understanding who we are, understanding the process that we're in.
Yes.
I think a lot of us can feel that there's something special happening with this whole Israel-Palestine thing. Maybe they feel obligated to take a side. Maybe they feel like they're not really interested. Either way, there's some kind of point that connects them to the situation. Some people more than others. It's clear that we're really in need of a new software. Like you guys mentioned, like, okay, we're in a war state of mind. And who's in the stronger camp? I want to join their camp. It's so outdated, so stupid. You can say the software is so stupid. The software that we have is so stupid. Doesn't work. It's so dumb. But I'm also powerless. To change it. It seems like. So these are special times. Well, at least we're aware and recognizing that we are kind of in need of something. And I guess that's why we gather here once a week. Figure out how we can take one more step closer to that recognition and the upgrade that we really need. So Asaf, stay safe. I guess we'll try it again Thursday.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody. We'll be back.
Thank you, friend.
Thursday.
So good to connect with you today.
Yeah.
And I was kind of peeking into the chat here and there, and just looking at all this activity there is heartwarming. So thank you, everyone. Yeah.
There's a song that plays, and in our hands we have a choice that waits. Together rising high above these lies, and see the world through your eyes. In every moment there's a chance to see another vision of what we could be. Behind the colors of the shadow